Alright, this is Cold War 5, this is 5B, and this is now our new policies. Get a little scary. Okay? So, we have a new Secretary of State. His name is John Foster Dulles. Now, John Foster Dulles is Secretary of State. He is, again, dedicated to the idea of preventing the spread of communism, hence the Truman Doctrine, right? Now, the Eisenhower Doctrine is exactly like the Truman Doctrine, but we're also going to extend to the Middle East. This is going to include Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and Egypt and places like that. Mainly Egypt is the place we're going to focus on, and we'll get into that later on, okay? Now, the first thing he's going to introduce is the idea of brinkmanship. So this is brinkmanship, guys. The policy of threatening to go to war as a response to enemy aggression. If you cross that line, I'm going to kick you so hard you're going to feel it next week. Okay? We're drawing a line, and we're basically saying, if you come across this line, I am willing to fight you. And so this is a dangerous concept. It's like playing chicken, if you've ever done that, or something like that, where you try to get the other side to basically back down. What happens if the side doesn't back down? Both of you are going to get hurt. Both of you are going to end up in kind of serious pain. So this is a bad idea, because if the Soviet Union doesn't back down, we will both end up in serious pain. We will both suffer nuclear conflict. But luckily, in the end, we realized both countries don't want nuclear war. They're just what was called saber rattling. I have a nuclear bomb. I'm going to use it. Ooh. The saber rattling, okay? North Korea is champ at this. They are really good at saber rattling. They're like, we got a nuclear weapon. Do. And we're like, fine, use it. Now, our next move as we're going through the saber rattling is we begin to use a deterrent. Now, if you deter somebody, that means you stop them by basically frightening them. So our nuclear deterrent was to use our nuclear weapons to stop theirs. I know, right? It's called massive retaliation. Massive retaliation was cheaper than a large military. We can't fight the Soviet Union man for man. It's not going to happen. But it doesn't always work in some situation. We basically built up our nuclear arsenal, tons of nuclear weapons, and we said, if you invade any country, we'll launch a nuke. This is similar to somebody thumping you upside the ear, and you grab a desk and hit them with it. Now, that's excessive force. Why did you need to do that? You don't, okay? In other words, if they invade a country, why do we need to blow them off the face of the planet? We don't. And so massive retaliation puts the Soviet Union in a big corner, and there's only one way to respond to that, and that is the MAD concept. Okay? MAD stands for Mutually Assured Destruction. But shortly, if you kill us, we'll kill you. In other words, if you launch a nuclear weapon, we're going to launch one right back at you, and if you kill us, we're going to kill everybody with you, and everybody's going to die. Okay? Very scary concept. Dr. Strangelove, I'll show you some of that stuff in class, a documentary on what it was like to live under this MAD concept. This movie is kind of a dark comedy. You're making fun of everybody's going to die. But nonetheless, some really poignant things are discussed, and we're going to look at that class, okay? Now, all of that back there was called the arms race. Basically, we're trying to build up who has the biggest nuclear stockpile, etc. We won that one. Yeah. But the Soviet Union had been working on another race, and it's called the space race. Who can get stuff into space? Now, why is space so important? One of the methods of delivering a nuclear warhead is called an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. It basically will go up into the orbit, go around the Earth, and you can basically direct it where you want it to go. So whoever controls space would be able to control ICBMs. It's that simple, right? So there's a race to see who can get things working. Okay? Victory number one, Soviet. The first artificial satellite, something that will go and orbit the Earth. It's called Sputnik, and it's made by the Russians or the Soviets. So this is Sputnik. It kind of goes around, it comes back down. Woohoo! But that's a victory because they built something that went around the Earth and came back down. They can do that with the ICBM. Victory number 2 goes to the Soviets. Its name was Lenka. Lenka, Soviet for, or Russian for bark. They put a dog in a capsule and sent it around. Now, unfortunately, the dog passed away before re-entry, and there's all kinds of memorials, etc. I'll show you some videos about Lenka in class. It's kind of heartbreaking, but they want to test it. Victory 3, man in space. The first man in space is a Soviet. His name is Yuri Gagarin. And so, basically, guys, we're looking at this. It's the fourth quarter. We're down 3-0, and we're about to get our butt kicked. We've really got to reestablish ourselves. And in the 1960s, we'll talk about how that worked. But how did we respond to these massive victories? We learned the Russians weren't stupid. And we're not the smartest country. I know, right? But what we did set up is the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, to compete with the Soviets. We also discovered through a lot of magazine articles, etc., our high school curriculum was not as rigorous or as difficult as theirs, and so therefore we're not as smart as they are. So Congress will pass the National Defense and Education Act, and this really focused on the basics of math, science, and foreign language, which if you look at your high school curriculum to get a college diploma, you've got to have 4 years of math, 4 years of science, 2 lab-based, and 2 years of foreign language to get into a college. Why? This is why. This is why the ACT is a big deal. This is why all those things come out, because we want you educated so that we can compete with other nations on the same standard, right? Pretty cool. But that's day 5. Now day 6, we get another new president. Eisenhower's out after 1960. He served his 8 years. And so we'll see in day 60 who we get.